Good evening, everyone. This week's Parsha is Parshas Pinchas, Tavshin Pei Gimel. So we'll start from the beginning of the Parsha, which is Perek Chaf Hey, chapter 25, Pasuk Yud, verse 10. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemar, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen, Hey Shavis Chamasi Me'al B'nei Yisrael, he turned back my anger from the Jewish people, when he zealously avenged my vengeance among them. And I did not destroy the Jewish people in my vengeance. Therefore tell him, behold, I am giving him my covenant of peace. It shall be for him and for his children after him, Beris Kunas Olam, a eternal covenant of the kahuna, of the priesthood. Because he took vengeance for his God, and he atoned for the Jewish people. So in the last week's Parsha, where the Jewish men are straying after the Moabite women, there is a man named Zimri ben Salu from the tribe of Shimon, who takes a Midianite princess, makes it very clear he's going to sin with her. Pinchas goes into the tent where he is with the woman, and he kills them both. And because he does this, the plague that was ravaging the Jewish people as they were acting immorally with the Moabite women and following the idol of Pa'ar stopped because of what he did. So in this week's Parsha, Moshe says that because Pinchas turned back my anger from the Jewish people, because he took my vengeance and I didn't destroy the Jewish people because of that, therefore I give him my covenant of peace, and his children will have the covenant of kahuna. Rashi explains that Pinchas originally wasn't supposed to be a Kohen because he was born when Aaron and his sons were anointed as Kohanim, and only the children of Aaron and his sons afterwards were meant to be Kohanim, but he was born before, so he was going to be left out. But now, because of what he did, he also now was included in being a Kohen. Okay, so we're going to focus on a very short medrash. Very short medrash. The medrash, when it says like this, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, Bedinhu sheyito scharai. Literally translated means, Bedinhu, it is right. It is within the parameters of law. It is lawful. It is right. It is following the parameters of law, of justice, that he gets his reward. Bedinhu sheyito scharai. He justly deserves his reward. And therefore, Emar, tell him, behold, I am giving him my covenant of peace. So the Medrash says that Hashem, when he says, Pinchas, son of Elazar, son of Aaron HaKohen, took away my anger, and therefore I give him a covenant of peace, the Medrash says that Hashem was saying to Moshe that Pinchas rightfully deserves the reward he's going to get. That's the wording of the Medrash. And that sounds a bit, puzzling, because if you do a mitzvah and you get reward for it, is it not just for you to get it? It's only just that he's getting his reward. When we get reward for doing a mitzvah, it's not just. What does it mean that he deserves it? He gets it. He gets it. He's deserving it, and we're not deserving it.
Everyone deserves.
Right? So what exactly is the point here to say, Bedinu sheyito scharai? It's just he rightfully deserves his reward. So the commentary of Shem Mishmuel explains this in a very interesting way, and it gives us a very interesting insight into the whole concept of reward that we get from mitzvahs. We know that one of the 13 principles of our faith is that Hashem rewards for the mitzvahs that we do and punishes us for the sins that we do. That's one of the principles of our faith. But the Shem Mishmuel has a fascinating insight about this. He starts off with a pasuk. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. Pasuk in Tehillim, the book of Psalms, Perek Samach Beis, chapter 62, pasuk Gimel, verse 13. And the pasuk reads, Ulocho Hashem chesed, to you God is kindness. Kindness is by you. You are kind. For you repay each person for his actions. Hear the words again. To you, Hashem is kindness. You practice kindness, Hashem, because you pay each person according to his actions. What does that mean? What does it mean that Hashem is kind? Because he pays each person according to his actions. So in order to understand this, the Shem Shmuel cites a Ramban, Nachmanides, in the book of Devarim. And this is in Devarim, Vav, Perek Vav, chapter 6, Pasuk Chafei, verse 25. But let me read you some of the psukim so we can get a little bit more context of what's going on there. Okay, so this is Devarim Vav Pasuk. We're going to start from the beginning. Pasuk Chaf, not the beginning, from the section. This is actually Parshas Vaschan, the second parsha in the book of Devarim. And Ki yish'alcha bincha machar lemar. When your son asks you tomorrow, saying, meaning Moshe is addressing the Jewish people and saying, if your son turns to you tomorrow, in the future, you're going to settle in Eretz Yisrael, and your son's going to turn to you and ask the following question. Maha edus v'achukim v'mishpatim. What are the testimonies, the mitzvahs that testify to events and to things that testimonies? First, to mitzvahs that testify to something, like the mitzvahs that are related to leaving Egypt. V'achukim v'mishpatim. And the statutes, meaning the mitzvahs that we don't understand the reason behind them, v'mishpatim, and the laws, the judgments, the mitzvahs that we do understand. What are they? Meaning, what are they about? What's the basis for them? Why are we doing them? That Hashem, our God, commanded you. V'amarta levincha, and you'll say to your son, Avadim hayinu lefar Mitzrayim. We were servants to Paro in Egypt. And Hashem took us out from Egypt with a strong hand. And Hashem gave signs and great signs and wonders. V'royim, and royim means and they were bad. B'mitzrayim, against the Egyptians. B'fara v'chabeser leinenu, against Paro and his whole household in front of our eyes. And he took us out from there, in order to bring us, to give us the land, that he swore to our fathers. Hashem commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Hashem our God, to be good for us all days, to give us life to this very day. Utzedaka tiyelanu. Now this is the pasuk. This is the verse that we're going to focus on. Utzedaka tiyelanu, and it shall be tzedakah for us. Ki nishmar la'asais kal mitzvah azais, when we guard to do all these commandments. Hashem Elokeinu, before Hashem our God, because somebody has commanded us. So the child wants to know, what are all these mitzvahs? What are they about? What's the basis for them? And the answer is, we were slaves to Paro. Hashem took us out. Hashem did great wonders. And he took us out to bring us to this land that he promised our forefathers. And Hashem gave us all these mitzvahs in order to fear him, to be in awe of him, for our benefit all days, to give us life to this very day. And then the last pasuk is, Utzedaka tiyalanu, and it shall be tzedakah for us when we guard to do all the mitzvahs before of Hashem our God, as he's commanded us. What does the word tzedakah mean?
It's not clear what is tzedakah. When existed.
We call it tzedakah charity, right?
Yeah.
Does that fit in here?
Not really.
Doesn't seem to be. Now, interestingly, if you look at the way the Art Scroll translates it, he says, and it will be a merit for us if we are careful to perform his entire commandment before Hashem our God as he commanded us. When we do Hashem's mitzvahs, it'll be tzedakah, it'll be righteousness, it'll be a merit for us. That's one explanation. Now, Ramban, Nachmanides, explains it in the following way. He explains like this. Kara Gamul HaMitzvah Tzedakah. This is a quote from the Ramban, from Nachmanides. The Torah calls the reward for mitzvahs tzedakah. Ki ha'eved ha'karnei l'rabbi, for a slave that is owned by his master. Shu chayav l'avodaisai, that the slave has to serve him. Im yitein oit schar b'avodasai, if the master decides to reward him for his work, tzedakah yaseh imai, he'll be doing tzedakah, he'll be doing charity with him.
But is this from Torah?
This is how the Ramban is explaining this pasuk. When the pasuk says tzedakah, it'll be tzedakah for us, means to say that when Hashem rewards us, you have to see that as tzedakah. Why? Because when Hashem took us out of Egypt, Hashem took us as his nation, we became his servants. We have to serve him. And if we have to serve him, then a slave doesn't get rewarded for his work. He has to work. But when Hashem gives us, but the pasuk is saying that when Hashem gives us reward for the mitzvahs that we do, that is tzedakah. That is charity. That's beyond what he has to give us.
Charity he gave us.
We're considered, when Hashem gives us reward, he's giving us charity. He's giving us something that is beyond what he has to give us. And then he continues, so that's the Ramban. That's the quote from the Ramban. And then now the Shem Mishmuel says, and this is the way to explain the pasuk that we opened with from Tehillim. Hashem chesed, to Hashem is kindness, because you pay each person according to his actions. Hainu, kasher tesham lishkamaseyu, mida b'mida. When Hashem pays us back, and we know that when Hashem pays us back for our mitzvahs, Hashem does what we call mida keneged mida, measure for measure. It's exact, measure for measure. Shenira l'chayra, shaschar boy lo b'din. That would seem that this reward is coming rightfully. It's a right. Look at Hashem goes through the bother. So Hashem makes sure to do it measure for measure. Something you measure for measure would seem to be something that you're obligated to do. Al Taimar came. The pasuk is saying, don't say so. Everything when Hashem pays a person for his actions, that is kindness. That's what it means. Hashem chesed. You Hashem is kindness because you pay each person for his actions. The fact that Hashem pays us for our actions, he rewards us for our actions, is a kindness. A person is, Hashem owns us. That's what we were created for, to serve him. In the same way, a servant, a slave, owned by the master, doesn't get any reward. And if the master goes and pays him for all the work that he does, it's complete kindness. It is not an obligation. That is how the reward for mitzvahs works. It's hard for us to understand this concept because the concept of slavery is something that is very, very foreign to us, and because it's a concept that we don't practice anymore. It's a concept that we don't consider it a proper practice, but it existed. We're called Avdei Hashem. We're called the servants of Hashem, which really means we're a slave to Hashem. That's what it really means. We are bound to Hashem. Hashem owns us. Hashem controls us. We're created to serve him. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're created for.
But there is no any reward at all.
No. So that's the point. So therefore, from that vantage point, he doesn't have to give us reward. But he still does.
Okay.
And because he still does, that's his kindness. So yes, we're not taking away the principle of faith that Hashem rewards. Of course Hashem rewards. But now we have a perspective of reward that tells us you should know that the reward for mitzvahs is not something that Hashem, so to speak, owes you. It's not something that Hashem, even when he has told you he's going to pay you, it's not so much that, you should understand that, okay, we do work, he pays us. Just like when somebody does something for us, we pay them, right? So too, when we serve him, he pays us. No, he doesn't. In essence, as his servants, he doesn't have to pay us. A servant doesn't get paid for his work. But if the master gives the servant payment for his work, that's tzedakah. That's kindness. That's charity. That is what the reward for mitzvahs is generally. However, says the Shem Shmuel, there are exceptions, and that is the following. This whole argument can be made when it comes to mitzvahs that we've been commanded to do. Of a mitzvah klal. How about a mitzvah, or let's call it a good deed, right? How about a good deed that we're not obligated to do?
Not obligated?
Yeah. A mitzvah that we're not obligated to do.
What is it?
Okay.
Mitzvah.
Okay. So we won't call it, that's why I'm not calling it a mitzvah. Calling it a good deed.
Okay.
Okay. But let's say you do something in the service of Hashem that you didn't have to do. And it's something that if he asks, we don't tell him to do. What he's referring to is like this. Let me tell you what he's referring to. When Pinchas killed Zimri, yeah, was he obligated to kill Zimri?
No.
So why do you do it? So the answer is the following principle. The answer is that a person who sees the kind of sin that Pinchas and everybody else saw, so on that we say kanoyin poigin bay. A zealous person can go and punish that person. That person is clearly doing a sin. And when he does the kind of sin that Zimri did, that's a very severe sin. That is the kind of sin that a person who's a kanoy, a person who's zealous, can kill him for it. Now, what does it mean, zealous? Zealous means that you see it and it bothers you so much. The desecration of God's name bothers you so much that you have to act in the honor of God. And you have to avenge the honor of Hashem. Now, when let's not talk about Pinchas for a second. Pinchas, a person would witness what Pinchas saw and what Pinchas reacted to. And he went over to his rabbi and he said, Rabbi, I just saw Reuben doing this very bad sin. Should I kill him? What's the rabbi supposed to say?
No.
No. You're supposed to say no. And the rabbi says no because A, it's not an obligation, and B, if you're asking, then you're not the kind of person to do this. But the Shem Shmuel is saying that in essence, when this whole concept of kanoy and poigin bay, that Pinchas had a right to kill Zimri as a zealot, as a person who was so bothered by the desecration of God's name that he knew what had to be done to this person to avenge God's honor is to kill him. That was something that if the halacha is that we don't tell a person to do it, we don't teach a person to do it. If he asks us, we don't tell him to do it, then that means essentially you're not obligated. But if you did it and you were the right person to do it, you did a mitzvah. You did the equivalent of a mitzvah. You served God. And God's going to reward you. But now when Hashem rewards you, that's not tzedakah. That's not tzedakah. Because that's not something you have to do. That was, so to speak, voluntary. Oh, it was voluntary. then the reward is something you deserve. And that's the point here about Pinchas. Bedinu the noitel schare. Pinchas takes his reward justly. He's not taking his reward out of kindness, but he's taking it bedin. He's taking it rightfully. He rightfully deserves it because every other mitzvah, essentially, it's a mitzvah, and that's a very important thing. It's something you have to do. And since it's something you have to do, it is therefore something that you don't get rewarded for. A servant has to serve his master. You don't get rewarded for that. The master doesn't owe you anything for that. But Hashem gives a reward anyway. That's his kindness to us. That's his tzedakah to us. But now when you do something that you really weren't obligated to do, like Pinchas did, but he did a tremendous service to Hashem, then the reward he gets, he deserves it. It's not a kindness then. It's not charity then. It's something that he deserves because he wasn't obligated to do it. Isn't that a fascinating concept? Unbelievable.
No, but this is really exception from the rule.
What?
This
Pinchas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. Definitely is. That's the point. But it's an exception for the rule because we now gain a new understanding about the reward for mitzvahs. And therefore now Pinchas is an exception for the rule.
Because actually Hashem approved his action.
Of course.
Because before he approved, nobody knows if he's correct or not. This is
okay.
No, but this is to kill somebody.
Yeah, but he knew it says he knew he knew there was such a concept. That's why he did it. He didn't just do it on his own. He knew there was such a concept. The question was amongst the people also, was he worthy of doing it? Was he on the level to do it?
But this is question. Another example.
I don't have another example of this. The interesting thing would be that, see, what happens is like this. I don't have another example because we have a concept, what's called lifni mishura sadin, doing beyond the letter of the law. It's a concept, doing beyond the letter of the law. And examples of that are talking about, the Gemara has a story about a person who he had workers, and his workers messed things up, and he didn't want to pay them, and he was told to pay, and he said, do I have to? And the answer was, you have to, because you have to do beyond the letter of the law. You're the kind of person doing beyond the letter of the law. Now, that's not necessarily a mitzvah. That example is not exactly a mitzvah. It's not the same as this necessarily. But maybe it is. I'm not sure. Anytime you go beyond the letter of the law, would this concept apply that because we're beyond the letter of the law, Hashem is going to reward you rightfully for doing that? Maybe it does. I just don't have another clear example. Like this example is a very clear example of doing something beyond what you have to do. The example I gave you, that's also beyond the letter of the law. Are you fulfilling a mitzvah? Maybe you're fulfilling a mitzvah of tzedakah. I don't know exactly. It's hard for me to say about that example I gave, or to talk about other examples.
But what about a conception? What is the idea? He did what he believes is right. But what is right?
To kill Zimri for doing the act that he did.
It means there is some mitzvah action, even this is not.
Even though you're not obligated,
even
it's the right thing to do.
It means just simple. Can be one mitzvah against one mitzvah to stop something, another mitzvah?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. This act that Pinchas did to kill Zimri was an act that, again, a certain type of person, a person who is a kanoi, he's zealous for the honor of God, he can do this. Is he obligated to do it? He's not obligated to do it. But it's something that's right to do. And it's something that you have to be a certain type of person to be able to do it. If you're that kind of person and you did it, you served Hashem in a big way. But the way the Shem Mishmol was explaining, you were not obligated. It was beyond the letter of the law. Okay, now another way the Shem Mishmol explains this, And let's see if we can work through this together. So I think let's work through this together. The other explanation says it like this. We have a rule, and I think this rule, have this rule in Pirkei Avos. It's brought down in Pirkei Avos, I believe. But again, the concept, the wording, I don't think is in Pirkei Avos, but the concept, I believe, is there. Schar mitzvah b'hal maleka. There's no reward for mitzvahs in this world. You ever heard of that concept?
No,
the reward for mitzvahs we do not get in this world.
It's really common.
Right, very common concept. Okay, now.
Don't expect mitzvah.
No. That's not the way you say it. That's not the way to say it. Don't expect. Schar, there is such a concept, don't expect. But then there's another concept that when Hashem rewards us for mitzvahs, that reward is not given in this world. It's given in the next world. Now, the question is, but the Torah talks about, right, that if you do the mitzvahs, right, I'll give you rain and I'll give you food and you'll be satisfied, right? The Torah says, if you fulfill the mitzvahs, everything will be good. If you don't fulfill the mitzvahs, they won't be good. So if we say that there is no reward for mitzvahs in this world, what is the Torah talking about when it says that when you do a mitzvah, Hashem says, I'll give you all these things? Says Rambam, says Maimonides, one of the answers to this question, Rambam says, is that when the Torah goes ahead and tells us that Hashem is going to give you the good of the world if you do a mitzvah, it's not a reward. It's rather Hashem saying that if you're going to go ahead and if you show me that you're doing my mitzvahs, that I'll make life very comfortable, that you can continue focusing on my mitzvahs undisturbed. That's whenever the Torah promises the blessings of the world for doing mitzvahs, the Rambam explains that to me that it's not reward. It is just it's Hashem's promise that if he sees that you want to serve him, he will make it easier for you to serve him. That's how the Rambam learns. But the rule is that there is no reward for a mitzvah in this world.
But is there no reward in this world? I always believe
for a mitzvah.
I always believe something different.
Yeah.
It's not always reward in this world. Sometimes yes, sometimes not.
No, that's not what it means.
No,
it means that the reward for a mitzvah does not come in this world. It only comes in the next world, in the afterlife. So the question is, but what about when the Torah says, if you do the mitzvahs, I'll give you these things? The answer is, it's not reward. It's Hashem saying, if you show me that you want to do the mitzvahs, I will make it easier for you to mitzvahs, right? If you have your food and you're healthy and you have your needs, it's easier to serve Hashem than otherwise. So Hashem says that if you've shown me when things aren't necessarily so easy that you want to serve me, Hashem says, I'll make it easier for you. You'll be undisturbed. Now, the question is,
this is hard.
Right. So now the question is, why is there no reward for mitzvahs in this world? So one explanation is because how could something in this world be a reward for a mitzvah? A mitzvah is so precious. A mitzvah is so precious that this world, this physical world, this mundane world, could never be a reward for a mitzvah. A mitzvah is so special that the only reward that is appropriate for a mitzvah is the ultimate pleasure of the world to come. But with the pleasures of this world, that's not a payment for a mitzvah. What, are you going to give me a piece of bubble gum because I did a mitzvah? You can't pay a mitzvah with something from this world. A mitzvah is way too special. It deserves the real reward, which is the spiritual reward of the world to come. That's how the Shem Shmuel explains. Therefore, Shem Shmuel says like this, okay? So, if this is so, what if the reward that you get in this world is spiritual? What if Hashem says, because you did something, right? I'm going to give you a spiritual reward in this world. Like Pinchas. What did Pinchas get? Hashem says, my covenant of peace. What does that mean? Hashem said he's gonna make $1 million. Covenant of peace is a special relationship with Hashem.
Promoted to the Kohen.
And he's going to be a Kohen, which is a service. How is he rewarded? That he'll be able to serve Hashem. He'll have the privilege of being a Kohen. That's a spiritual reward. Spiritual reward. So that's not a contradiction. And it won't take away from your reward in the world to come either. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same type of reward. If Hashem is giving you a spiritual reward in this world, and the reward being that now you have the opportunity to serve me more, you'll have the opportunity, you'll have the ability to be closer to me than close, have a unique relationship with me in this world. It's spiritual. Then it's not. Then it can be a reward for a mitzvah. That's what the Medrash means. Bidin hu noitel. That's what the Medrash means. What it means, he gets the reward. Bidin. It's just. He deserves the reward, and it's rightfully, and it's a rightful reward. It's bidin. It's rightful. Why? Because the only reason we say there's no reward for mitzvahs in this world is because how could this physical one day world be a reward for a mitzvah? But if the mitzvah is if the reward is spiritual, like what happened to Pinchas, then it's bidin. Then it's rightful. Then it can be a reward for your mitzvah even in this world. Have a wonderful evening.